is Europe companies want to hire developers in Middle East on a country like Egypt, like Saudi Arabia, or
But maybe it's cheaper to hire someone from another country, right?
cheaper the money.
Um,
We want now to understand the market in Europe and in US.
as a junior starting developer, I think kind of like 2,000 euros per month.
Hello, everyone, and hello to my dear friend Gerald, the Microsoft expert and the Xamarin Community Toolkit contributor. we
So
have,
many
oh,
titles.
yeah, yeah, we have honored Gerald to have you again in our YouTube channel. And inshallah, our new session will be better than the last one because the good title of the session. We will talk about the working in Europe, working remotely in Europe in this session, and I think Gerald will give us a very good information, inshallah, about working remotely. Go
I
on,
hope so.
Gerald.
I hope so. Yeah, thank you so much for having me again on your channel, Ali. I'm so happy to be here again, and that you brought me back here and wanted to ask more about working in Europe, working remotely, how it is working for companies in Europe. So I hope I can give you some information to your viewers, and that it will be good.
Yeah, yeah, you are right, my friend. Okay, Gerald. Now we everyone in Middle East have a dream to work in Europe. They asking about is Europe companies want to hire developers in Middle East on a country like Egypt, like Saudi Arabia, or something like that. We want you to answer this question firstly.
All right. Well, that is a very interesting question. So I think, with the whole pandemic, with the whole COVID situation, then of course, I think companies are now looking to hire more remotely, which is interesting, right? Because um, first, companies would like to have you in the office. So you would have less competition of other people who are trying to get the same job. And now suddenly, around the whole world, there are developers who are competitors, right? Who are can get the same job. I think you know companies are still a little bit holding back with
Hmm.
maybe outsourcing the jobs. It's I think in the U.S. and kind of like the more startup companies, the newer companies, they are more convinced of like the remote working, and they just want to have the best people for the job and not so much the people that are living somewhere locally that can come to the office. Um, but I think for a lot of companies now, they have their eyes opened because of the pandemic, and they see like, hey, we can also hire people from other countries. I'm not sure if that's very specific to like the Middle East or Egypt. I think if you are going to work remotely, or you're going to have find people who can work remotely for you, then definitely why not in the Middle East or Egypt? Because kind of like also the advantages is that you're in the same time zone. So there's not a big time difference, which is definitely also a challenge. I guess we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. So yeah, I would say why not find companies who are hiring remote from the Netherlands, where I'm from, or somewhere else in Europe, and just apply to there. Or if you need some help, then reach out to me, and I'll be sure to see if I can help you with that.
Okay. So, Gerald, why a company in Europe or in US need to hire an employee outside the country? Why a company need a specific job outsourcing, not on site or something like that?
I can. There can be many reasons, right? So one of the obvious reasons is that maybe it is, and this is not something that is a, a great reason, I think, but maybe it's cheaper to hire someone from another country, right?
Cheaper, the money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's always important, right? So that's
Mm.
why you also see a lot of people who are being or a lot of work being outsourced to like India is very popular, I think,
Yeah, and
because it's just cheaper to live in India, right? So
yeah,
the companies here still pay a lot of money to
Mm,
the people in India, but it's much cheaper than actually hiring someone here. So that can be one of the reasons.
mm,
But another reason can be that maybe you search for a specific technology, a specific
mm,
expertise that is very popular in Egypt, but not so much in the Netherlands.
mm,
Or maybe you are looking to expand your product. Maybe you want to build out your project. Maybe I build a product that is released in the Netherlands, but now I want to also expand to other countries, maybe like Egypt. So then it makes sense to
mm.
find people there, right? Local people who can maybe help me with rolling it out there, who know the market there. So that can be there can be many reasons to kind of like open source. Open source is good too, but to outsource the work basically.
Yeah. So after your words, Gerald, I feel that working remotely in Europe or US is something very easy. It's not difficult. It's not something difficult or strange in these days. Can we name some of the companies that expand its employee in other countries, if you know?
So like local companies here or any company. I work for Microsoft, so they
Yeah.
definitely do remote work as well. Although you would expect from Microsoft that they have been doing that for a long time, which is not necessarily true. But that's the other thing, right? A lot of those bigger companies, at least, whenever
Mm,
you might apply to them, they also
mm,
will ask you. They asked me like, "Hey, are you willing to move to the US and work here?" So they will help you with that. I don't know, maybe they will pay for that. I
mm,
guess. So that's an option sometimes too, to relocate if that's something that you would want. But now working remotely, that is also more of an option for Microsoft. And GitHub, it's also now a Microsoft company, but it was a company before Microsoft. And I think GitHub is now, it was before also a remote first company, right? So they
yeah.
have a lot of people all over the world. There's people in the UK, there's people in Australia, there's of course people in the US, but there's people everywhere because they believe that it works. And I
Mm,
think that it definitely can work if you if you adopt certain things of asynchronous communication, and you just
mm.
make agreements on that. But you were asking about companies who do that. So Microsoft, GitHub, like all the bigger companies, I feel
I think
here in the
Amazon also.
sorry.
Amazon also, I
Amazon,
think.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I know someone who works at Amazon in Germany, so that's kind of like
Yeah.
the country next to us. They definitely have they have an office there as well, I think, but they definitely also have people working remotely for them. So that's kind
Mm.
of like the Uber, probably.
Yeah,
Um,
Uber. You are right. You are
yeah,
right.
all the bigger companies, and here, I don't know, maybe. But this is like really local companies, bol.com, which is kind of like the Dutch Amazon. So it's very local to
Mm,
here and Belgium, I think, and France.
mm.
Or Coolblue, which is also kind of like a Amazon competitor here in the Netherlands. What else? Probably if you are really interested in working remotely for a company in the Netherlands, then again, reach out and I will see if I can find a company that might be suitable for you.
Yeah. So, my friend, we listed some companies that always require developers or engineers in outside the country working remotely. So, if anyone wants now to apply for a job in Europe or in US, if we can put some links or some websites that we can find the job in, this is will be very nice. If you can tell us a popular website or a popular community we can join it to find these amazing jobs.
Oh, that's a very good question. So to be very honest, I don't know how it is over there. I would be interested to hear. But I never really had to kind of look for a job, if that makes sense,
Mm,
because all the companies want to hire software developers right now because there's a big
mm,
shortage of software developers, right? So
mm, mm,
it happened a lot of the times that companies would come to me. I still have a lot of recruiters coming to me on LinkedIn or whatever. So LinkedIn is a good one, I guess, for that has a lot
LinkedIn,
of
yeah.
job offerings, and if you put on there, I'm a software developer, and maybe for the specific technology that you're working in, then probably recruiters will come to you and ask you if you can work for them. So that's kind of like the luxurious position that we have right now as software developers, that jobs come to us instead of we having to actually look for jobs. So LinkedIn is a good one, and of course, again, if you are looking for like the bigger companies, like Microsoft, for example, has a dedicated career website. So I think that's careers.microsoft.com, which lists all the openings that we have all around the world. So you can search for like something that's
Mhm.
local to you or something that interests you, and it will also say like, hey, is this open to remote? Yes or no. But also Microsoft, I think it's written somewhere like, hey, we prefer to hire the right person rather than the person that lives close by. So if you want to land a job at Amazon or Google or Microsoft, then you probably will have some kind of career portal that you can look at. So just search for career and then the company that you're looking for, and you will probably find something for that as well.
Yeah, so the LinkedIn and the website of the companies like Microsoft or Google is the main source of the job opportunities we can find in Europe. Okay, now I can ask about the job in Microsoft or in Google. You are working in Microsoft now.
Yeah.
Some people think that a job in Microsoft is something very difficult and something very far for me to have a job in Microsoft or Google. So, what do you think of these ideas, Gerald?
Oh, don't think like that. Please don't think like that, which is very easy to say, right? Because I work at Microsoft now, so I should say something like this, which is definitely not true. I'm not saying this because I have to or whatever. I was like you. I worked here for local companies. I went to school, got off it. I didn't, I was not the rock star developer that got recruited by Microsoft because I was doing miracles, right? I definitely wasn't that person. So and I never, to be honest, I never had a dream to work at Microsoft. Also because I would never thought it would happen. Um, so what I did is I like doing this. I like creating content. I like sharing my knowledge. I like talking to everyone to see if I can help, either by teaching someone a new technology or talking about career things. So I'm doing a lot of that stuff, and that's also how I kind of worked up to my role at Microsoft, because I'm focused on Xamarin and now .NET MAUI, and also other Microsoft technologies that come together with that. But I started writing blogs about that. I started writing articles. I started giving sessions at conferences doing that. So that's something that you must like doing. I mean, that's not for everyone. But if you have the ability to do so, to share, I mean, that's a great thing to do, to be out there in the community. And at some point, you also have the Microsoft MVP program, which is a award for all the contributions that you're doing for free in your own time about Microsoft technology. So doing the sessions, being on Twitter, helping people, being on Stack Overflow, talking to people. So doing all these kinds of things that I just mentioned, and then you can be nominated for this award, and you can get awarded. So at some point that happened to me, and I was already very happy because I would never expect that to happen to me as well. And from there, I started to still I was working, focusing on Xamarin Forms specifically, and I
Mm.
thought, I'm using this product. I'm using this product for free, and it's open source. So I should see if I can contribute back to this project. And that's what I started doing. So I started opening pull requests. I started seeing like, hey, I have this issue. Instead of just opening the issue and have the Xamarin Forms team fix it for me, I could go out to the code and see if I can fix it myself. So that's what I started doing as well. And then at some point on Twitter, because obviously I was following the people from Xamarin, they were promoting
Yeah.
that they had an opening on their team. And I thought, well, why not? Why not try? And I did
Mm.
have zero expectancy of me landing this job, but I did. So that was really
Mm.
great. And now suddenly
Really?
I'm working at Microsoft. So if you are a person that has a well, which is not something bad, which has a regular life, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You can still get a job at Microsoft. And to be honest, now I know both sides. I know from the outside of Microsoft and from the inside. And on the inside, you mean, sure, we have smart people working on amazing products, but it's also
mm,
still just people, and they're
yeah, you
trying to
are
do
right.
their best, and they have bad days as well where they cannot do anything, they cannot get anything to work.
Mm,
So we have that days as well. So anyone can get a job at Microsoft. That's kind of like my message here.
yeah, yeah, my friend. I want to ask you a question now, Gerald. Me and you agree that anyone can work in IT field or in development field without any certificate, without a background degree in computer science. Okay,
Yeah.
but I want to ask you two question in one question. The first question is the background degree of computer science affect the hiring process of a developer in Europe or US, and if any other certificate like Google certificate or Microsoft certificate affect the hiring process of the developer.
Good question. Good question. So let me start by saying I know people also at Microsoft who have no degree at all, not even from high school, right? And they still do a great job. So I personally believe that the experience and all the other things, what I personally did, I have been, reviewing people who would apply to a job at companies that I worked before. And what I would do is not really look at their resume, but more go to see if they have a GitHub URL on there and see if they have any code on there. So, I could see what their code is, what they like to do in the open source or in the community. Now, of course, that's not for everyone, right? Again, I totally understand that not everyone has the time or otherwise the capacity to work on open source projects or do whatever. So that must not be the only thing. But for me, it's like the entire complete package. You talk to someone,
Mm,
you see
mm,
their resume, some extra stuff like the GitHub or maybe video recordings of talks that they did on
mm,
sessions or blog posts, something like that. Anything that you could use as a portfolio. But um,
mm,
definitely, also at Microsoft, we hire people who do not have the standard kind of certificates or diplomas from school. But it on the other hand, it's kind of easier to prove your knowledge if you have some kind of certificate from either your school or a university, or maybe a Microsoft certificate that you got through, like Pearson View, or you can study for all kinds of Azure certificates and that kind of stuff. It kind of proves that you know what you're talking about, right? So that always helps, I feel, if you can do that, but it's not really necessary, I feel. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of like my opinion on that. I was going to say one more thing, but I totally forgot. So go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, I understand you. Yeah. Okay, let's move, Gerald, for the hiring process for the companies and the career required in Europe and US. From your own point of view, maybe careers like mobile development or web development or mobile a career like data science is very demanding than other careers, or all careers required in this market. We want now to understand the market in Europe and in US. Because if we understand the market, we can learn the required skills or required technologies to join this market.
Yeah, so also interesting question. I think, kind of like what is required in terms of technical skills. So okay, let me go back. Also, again at Microsoft, and I hope it is in every other company as well. What is more important is if your personality fits in the company, if you fit in the company, because skills, technical skills, can be learned, right? You can learn how to
Yeah,
code. You can learn how to do whatever. You can learn different programming languages. We can teach you that. That's no problem. But what you can't learn is how you are as a person. Are you
Mm,
curious? Do you want to learn? Do you want to grow? Are you interested in new technology? In whatever? Are you nice to your other coworkers? Can we, if we make a agreement with you, can we
mm,
know that you will deliver something on time? Right? Can we communicate? So I feel that is much more important than actually the skills. I mean, sure, you have to have a certain set of basic skills, technical skills that you can use. So if you are going to apply for a job as a software engineer and you don't know anything about it, if you don't know an if statement, then it's going to be hard, right? So you have to have that basic kind of knowledge, I feel, for the role that you're after. Um, but other than that, I think it's also very important to have uh, kind of like your personality. And if you're considering like working remotely, probably one other thing is that you will have to find a language that you can communicate in, right? Because if I'm
wow.
going to work remotely in Egypt, and all the people can only say speak Arabic to me, then I'm going
Yeah.
to have a real hard time, right? Then that's not going to work. So English is kind of like the accepted language worldwide, or
Yeah.
Spanish
Common
is also
language.
very big, of course. But
Mm.
so probably English is a good bet to also learn and yeah, maybe practice with that if you really want to work somewhere remotely.
Yeah. So, some English skills and some technical skills, also some self-development skills required to have a great job in Europe or US. So, Gerald, did you take a self-development course before, or how you learned these things?
Um, so I'm a regular person. What I mentioned before, I just went to school, went to university. I learned computer science, and so I'm a stereotype white person with all the things, all the chances, all the great things. So
Yeah.
I'm very privileged that way. I definitely realize that. What did I do to then self learn more? I did a couple of those Microsoft certificates in Azure and
Mm,
all these kinds of stuff. So, I did it different ways. I have bought a book and read that in preparation for the exam. Also, I would just, the way I learn best is if I just do it. So if there's
mm,
any technology or anything that I'm interested in, I would just go out. I would read a very, just to get started documentation, probably like what should
mm,
I install, what do I need for this, and then I would just, go play with it, see what it can do. Maybe watch a YouTube video. That's also a great way to learn for some people, or find some blog posts. And then whenever you find a problem, if you don't know how to fix something, then you would go search, and then you fix the problem, and then you've learned something. And learning something is really hard because in the beginning it's very slow. You find a lot of problems, and then at some point it snaps, and you've reached this point, and suddenly you can make progress with it, and you've learned something new, and that's really cool. So watching a lot of, and as a speaker at conferences, you automatically get to go there and you can watch other sessions from other people. So you will learn a lot from that as well. So there's a lot of ways to learn.
mm.
Yeah, and then just reading books, basically. I think I have a above average maybe interest in like all things software development. So I'm basically always watching or reading or doing something, right? And um, also another way, which is really funny, like I mentioned earlier, like I did blogging and now the videos and all kinds of stuff. That's also a great way to
Mm.
learn, because
Yeah,
if you want to teach
you're
someone
right.
else, you have to understand yourself. So if I prepare a sample code for something, then I prepare that. I do the demo for myself first, and if something's not working, then I think, oh, that's interesting.
You are
I'm going
right.
to fix this, and then I learned how to fix that, and I will put that in my video so that other people will, if they encountered a problem, they will see like, oh, okay. So first, Gerald is not a superhuman who works at Microsoft. He has these errors as well, and he is telling us like, hey, I had this problem. Here is how you can solve it. So that is also a very great way to learn.
Yeah. So, Gerald, me and you again agree that soft skills may be more important than technical skills. Technical skills, you can learn it, but soft skills, how we can learn soft skills? If I had a problem in my soft skills, how can I improve my soft skills?
Ooh, you have good questions this video. That's very nice. How can I improve that? So I think what in order to improve it, you have to know that something is, well, wrong. I hate saying wrong because something is not really wrong, but you have to be aware that you can improve something, right? So you probably want to maybe ask a friend or someone who you feel confident with, who you feel
Mm,
comfortable with. Like,
mm,
hey, what do you think could I is something that I can improve? Or
mm,
maybe what is very important for, especially in like these bigger companies, what I really appreciated now is finding a mentor. So be a mentor and
yeah,
a mentee. So finding someone who
yeah.
is willing to coach you a little bit, right? To
Mm,
maybe I'm a senior developer, maybe someone who is, but it can be the other way around, right? I can also maybe mentor someone who is like further in his career. But usually, typically, what happens is that you would, as a senior developer, maybe someone who is trying to get into software
mm,
development, or maybe a junior developer, you can mentor that person, which can be anything. Basically, a mentoring session can be like, hey, Ali, you are coming here to me for some advice. So what is things that you want to talk about? What are the challenges that you have? And that can be a great way
mm,
to work on your soft skills as well, because the mentor is going to be honest, which is not always nice to hear. But if you have a good mentor, he or she is going to be honest, and
mm,
they're going to say, "Hey, Ali, maybe you need to work on this." And
mm,
again, that might not always be nice to hear, but then you at least have something like, "Hey, okay, I did not know that I was doing this, and people maybe would like it if I would do it a little bit different." So then you
mm,
at least are aware that you can change something, and then it's up to you, like how you want to. If you want to change it, I mean, don't go changing if if you're happy with who you are. Definitely don't do that. But if you think like, hey, this improving this soft skill can be beneficial for me if I want to reach my goal to work at a specific company or work in a specific role, then that's something that you can improve on. And that can be done by taking a course, installing an app. If we talk about like, practicing the English skills, you have
mm.
apps that can teach you a new language. You can read a book about programming. You can do all kinds of things depending on what your favorite way to learn is. So.
Yeah, yeah, you are right. Okay, my friend. So now we want to move on for the hiring process. If I am find a job in LinkedIn or any other website and I applied for this job, what I can expect for the interviews? Firstly, what kind of interviews I'll face in the job, and also how can I expect the maybe the questions, the type of problems I can face in the interviews. So give us your experience.
So my experience, it is very much dependent on the company or maybe the country where you're applying. So here in the Netherlands, for instance, it's usually not, you don't get any like very technical coding tests usually. Also kind of like, depending on how you apply. Like I said, a lot of the jobs I got through being invited by the company. So they already knew a little bit of what I was doing, what I'm capable of. They maybe looked at my GitHub page and see some things there. But there have been definitely companies where I did have to do some kind of technical test, which in this specific case it was a kind of take-home assignment. So I would get an assignment and I could either do it right there in the office, or I could take it home and solve it somewhere during the week and then send the results in.
mm,
And in this case, it wasn't really like a test, like if I would fail, I would not get the job, but more so like to see where you are in like the technical level, how I would solve things, and it would tell them a little bit about my style, basically. Um,
mm,
so that was one, and there was one other company um, which made me take an IQ test, which I
mm.
found really weird, to be honest. So it was really, had nothing to do with programming. It was like you see four images, and then what's going to be the fifth image, right? So I don't
Mm,
know. I didn't really understand why a company would do that. So I didn't really. If I when I found out that, I didn't really even want to work there anyway. So that's also
mm,
something important, right? Interviewing at a company goes two ways, right? It's not just the company deciding if they want to have you, but it's also you deciding if you want to work at that company. So little pro tip right here.
yeah,
But a lot of the times it's just a couple of conversations. One starting off at getting to know each other, like, hey, I'm Gerald. Before this, I've worked this and this and this. My interests are this and this and this. I have a wife, two children, lovely home. So chit chatting a little bit. Then if you still, and they tell you something about the company, and then if that's still okay, then they will invite you back, and it will get a little bit more in detail about, hey, we're searching for a person like this. You need to know about C sharp. You need to know about .NET. We have this product that we are working on. Are you okay with that? Um, and then maybe depending on if they want to have another round of talks, or maybe in that same conversation you're going to talk about like salaries and other terms that you might find important, because that's the stuff that comes with it as well. So negotiating with that a little bit. But if you look at like the US, there you have, I think, a very different hiring process. I only know the one from Microsoft, but what I've been
mm,
hearing from other people as well, it's much
mm,
more harder, because there you will get real coding assignments, and maybe asked about algorithms and explain that and draw on a whiteboard how things should work. So yeah, the hiring process, I think, is there very different and much more focused on what you actually know from code and whatnot. But
mm.
still also trying to get to know you a little bit, and trying to see where your soft skills are and if you're a right fit for the company. Um, do you want to know a little bit about how it went for at Microsoft, so I can share a little bit of that experience?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay, great.
Okay, okay. Let's say what is the hiring process you did when you get hired in Microsoft, so we can get this experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Microsoft, so like I said, they have this careers portal. So you apply there, and it's just a very static portal, very unpersonal. But and you will get then an email, if they, you will go through a first round by a recruiter, and if you are not a right fit, if they have looked at your LinkedIn or your resume or whatever, and they think like, yeah, we're not sure, or maybe they want to hire someone specifically in a certain area, and you're not in that area, then they're going to not invite you. But how it went for me, luckily they invited me. So my first call was with a recruiter, like, hey, how are you, etc., etc. We would like to, and well, like I said earlier, the first question they asked me, like, hey, do you want to move here to the US? Which probably also impacts a little bit your chances, because Microsoft still very much prefers to have all the software engineers in the US. So
Mm,
if you're willing to do that, then definitely say yes, and you will have a nice adventure in America as well. Um, but I do not have the possibility to do that, so I said no. But that was still okay. And the actual interview process was quite intense. It was 4 hours. And because of
mm,
the time difference, it was in the evening for me. So I had a full day of work already. And then I think it started at 8 p.m. Until 12 p.m. I had 4 hours of talks with four different persons. So
Wow.
that was a new person each hour. And each hour would be a mix of, just talking like, hey, I'm Gerald, I'm from the Netherlands, how are you? I'm good. Then a little bit of the HR, the human resource questions, right? Like, think back of a time when you had a conflict with your manager. How would you resolve it? Or you
Mm.
have to work together with a coworker. How do you do
Normal
that?
question.
Sorry?
Normal questions. It's a
Yeah,
normal
yeah, yeah.
question.
That's the normal questions, and then there would be. I think that's the most of the time they would be like, "Here is a technical assignment. How we have this problem. How are you going to solve it?"
Okay.
And I'll be honest, there were four technical assignments as well, and I felt I failed them all four. So
Mm.
did the interview, and I thought like, oh, this is not going to be it. I'm not good enough, right? So like the question from earlier, am I good enough to work at Microsoft? Um,
Mm.
but what I did and what I feel like the technical assignments should be for is also see how you think, how you would solve things. I mean, the problems are designed to kind of like not be solved in 30 minutes, right? But
Mm.
as long as you kind of speak out loud, like, hey, okay, I see this problem. I think maybe a little bit of recursion when I write this function, and you type some pseudocode. So that's code that not really maybe compiles, but at least give the other person an idea of how it should work. Um,
Yeah.
and say like, hey, okay, and I would maybe Google this because sure, we all know that we do that, right? So and I would like I should look up a little bit about this. So just think out loud about what your thought
Mm.
process is. And I apparently did something right because I got the job. But it was very intense, and at the end of the 4 hours, I really felt like I did a bad job, and I was not gonna get the job. So, but here I am.
Congratulations, my friend,
Thank
to
you.
join Microsoft. Okay, my friend. So, can I ask you if there are a popular programming language in Europe or US, or a popular technology I can know, or I can learn, or again and again, anything I learn or anything I have, I can use it to join a company.
Yeah, so I would think that if you're going to apply for something that you have chosen a certain technology that you're going to work in. So if you talk about what is popular, I've mentioned it a couple of times already because I kind of assume that people who interest in software development know about Stack Overflow. StackOverflow.com is a very popular website where you can
Hmm.
post your problem
Yeah.
and asking people for answers, right? But they do a lot
Mm.
more. Actually, talking about it, they have I think job offers there as well, so job applications. So that's also a very good place to look.
Mm.
But also, what they also do every year is put out a survey to all of their members and ask, like, hey, what is the technology that you're working with? Or what technology do you want to work with? And it's a whole bunch of questions, and they put out the results. And I think probably the most popular language is JavaScript or something. I think that is always pretty
You
high
are right.
still.
You are right.
Of course, with the whole Microsoft stuff, it's all going to be C sharp or TypeScript, which is also a little bit of JavaScript.
Yeah.
So C sharp and .NET. And so that's kind of like the popular languages. I think
Mm.
if you're looking more to artificial intelligence and machine learning, then Python is very popular.
I
So it also kind of depends on what
career.
yeah, what kind of area you're looking for. I think Ali, on your channel you have some C++. I think that's still very popular because it's very performant, so it's very fast.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so p- that's a couple of the most popular ones from the top of my head, but it really depends on kind of like on you really, like what is a programming language or technology that you like, because
Mm.
I don't believe you can work at a job very long if you have to work with something that you don't like. um, so try different languages. I mean, if you know how to program, then
You
the
can learn
language
it.
doesn't. Yeah, then the language doesn't really matter. You can look again. Skills can be learned. You can learn the language. You can learn a new language as long as you know the concept of an if statement or all these kinds of things. You just have to do a little bit of other characters or an enter more or less. So that's
Yeah,
just something that you can.
column.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
you're right. Okay, my friend. So now I want to ask, if I accepted in a company in Europe or US, what can I expect? What can I expect of salary, of benefits I can get from this company, and what I can accept and what I can reject. I know. Anyone must put his own boundaries. He must
Yeah.
to put his own boundaries. But general advices about everyone. What can I expect and what can I reject and what can I expect from the company?
That's always a tough situation. At least here, there's always kind of this taboo on talking about how much money you make, right? I don't know how it is in other countries, but it's always hard. You don't ask a person like, "Hey, how much money do you make?" So there's if you're good friends, then people will tell you most of the time. But yeah, it's very important, like what you said, right? Like set your own boundaries. So try to investigate what are realistic numbers. What are you happy with yourself? And also where are you in life, right? So if you are just starting out as a software developer, then it's going to be a lower salary. And if you just want to get started and make a little bit of a name for yourself, then maybe you can accept a little bit of a lower salary
Mm,
that you can work for, right? As long as you still can put a roof over
satisfied.
your head and get something to eat. And other than that, I think there's websites for that as well, like Glassdoors
Yeah,
or levels.fyi. I will send the link to you, Ali, so you can put it in the video description.
yeah.
The levels.fyi is a website for like the bigger companies. So again, like the Microsoft and the Facebook and the Googles and whatnot. Um, where you can see like what the different stages are for your career and what actual people are supplying their salaries there anonymously. So you can
Mhm.
see like what people are making where they are on the career. So just investigate what is realistically.
Mm.
And again, it's not just a company. It's always this kind of like, well, struggle, I wouldn't say, but it's also this interesting synergy, right? Like the company, of course, would like to have you as cheap as possible, almost, and you want to earn more money. So it's always this kind of like you have to find like the middle. But
Negotiation.
it's not always like that. So again, I only know from Microsoft, but they were like very generous. They asked me like, hey, what do you want to what do you have in mind for salary? And I said, well, this, which is the salary that I was working for then at a company, because I was just happy. This is also a factor, right? I was just happy if I would get a job at Microsoft. I would. I was making enough money. I can pay the rent for the house. I can pay for food. If I would have to work for a little bit less money, but I would work at Microsoft, I would still do it. So I
Mhm.
said like, hey, this is the number that I would work for right now. And they came back and they said, well, we're going to give you this, which was higher than I asked for. So then I was like, oh no, I should have asked for more. But on the other hand, it's also fair, right? They see some value in me and they will put the right price on that. So I think if a company does that, then that's a very good company because they will not try to get you for the cheapest, but they will just value you for who you are. And that's also kind of like the kind of hard problem with the whole remote working, right? Um, because now I'm getting a salary from Microsoft, which is very good for the Netherlands. I don't think a lot of people in
Yeah.
the Netherlands in my position make this kind of money.
Mm.
But for American standards, for US standards, for Microsoft, I'm very cheap. So
Mm.
it's very interesting how this all works now because the if I would go to Seattle, the house prices right there right now are really crazy because everyone wants to live there, all the software developers. So I think you should go buy a house for $1 million there right now, and that's not even crazy. Um,
Mm.
so there the cost of living is much higher. Here it's much lower. So they pay me a lot less than they would pay me if I were to live in the United States. But for the Netherlands, it's still very high. So it's very
Mm.
interesting. But let's say something concrete. If you go here working in the Netherlands, um, let's say as a junior person, and this is in euros, right? So you have to do some
Okay,
little
here.
translation
Okay,
yourself.
okay.
As a junior starting developer, I think kind of like 2,000 euros per month. So
Yeah.
times 12, yeah, that's 24, right?
Mm.
24,000 a year. And if you go to like more senior, this is kind of based on when I started out, right? So that's already 10 years ago. So it might be 25 right now or something
Mm.
like that. But
Mm.
somewhere between 2 or 3,000 is good, right? And then if you go to like more senior roles, it can be like, I don't know, 60, 70, 80,000 per year, I think.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's kind of like realistically, and depending on, it so much depends on also like if you know a programming language that someone really needs, like Delphi or COBOL. COBOL is really old, so but there's still a lot of banks who run on COBOL applications. So if you are the only person who knows that, then they have to pay the price that you ask them, right? So if you have this very niche expertise of some technology, then that is worth money as well. So
Mm.
it depends on a lot of factors. But if you are just a regular C# .NET developer in a senior role, I think that is kind of like the numbers that you have to think of.
Mm. Do you know, my friend, the salaries you said is not far away from the
Ah,
number of salaries here in Egypt, but the difference is here in the Egyptian pound, and you talking about euro, and 1 euro is equivalent to 20 Egyptian pound.
okay, okay.
So the entry level, or the first level of developer you are talking about here in Egypt, the leaders don't take this amount of money. Are you imagine?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
interesting,
it's it,
interesting.
it's different about everything. The reality here, and the food here, and the rent of house here is very different for the life in Netherlands, and the rent of houses
Probably.
and
Yeah.
everything. I know. You can bid in euro in Netherlands, and here we are bid in a different currency. So this is makes a very good dream for everyone here in Middle East to work remotely in Europe or US. This is makes this video very awesome. If anyone can take a good information about our session today.
Yeah, great. That's what I'm doing this for, right? And I've repeated it already a couple of times. So if you want any help or some advice, please reach out to me. There will be contact details here, or you can find me anywhere basically. So just reach out, and I'll be happy to help or answer your questions. So absolutely.
Yeah. So the last question I can ask you, how you could manage the work remotely in Microsoft? How you can manage the difference of time zone? How you can manage the meetings, the delivery dates, everything maybe makes you feeling not comfortable for the work remotely.
Yeah, so working remotely and especially in different time zones is very interesting, also very challenging. So I've been working at Microsoft for almost 3 years now, and I really had to get used to working remotely because you are very used to working in an office from 9 to 5. At least that's like very normal here, right? So you will just come in the morning and you will leave after 8 hours, and that's it. So now suddenly working remotely, no one is checking if you are actually behind your desk. I don't have to check in or out or whatever. Also because a lot of the people are still sleeping when I start working. So that's very interesting, and also because you're suddenly working from your own house, so it's very hard to disconnect from your work. So I have this dedicated space here upstairs, which I'm really happy with. So I think that's like tip number one. If you can do that, please do that. So you will have a door. You leave your desk, you go at the door, you close the door, and then you already have that kind of little separation from your work, right? So you can leave your
Mm,
work in your office. But
yeah.
still, I would go downstairs, eat with my family, or have lunch, and you would still think about work because it's still kind of like in the same house, right? Um,
Mm,
so that's kind of like the other thing. I think I live in a very tiny town here,
mm,
and I would walk to the supermarket, which is down the road and back, and that was about it. Also, it wasn't really helping, of course, with the whole pandemic that happened. That I
mm,
really couldn't, I really couldn't go anywhere else. But that was it. And I think this is seriously. I think at some point after 3 weeks, I thought I never really went anywhere in 3 weeks. I just went to the
mm,
supermarket and here, and all the other was just working, 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 go to sleep.
mm,
And that will make you go crazy. And this is going to be
yeah.
different for everyone, but you really have to find something else to do. So I signed up for the local gym, so you do some weights or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
something that will put your mind on something else. And
Mm,
that really helps. So find something else to do to disconnect from your work.
mm,
Also, another tip that I got very early on from other people with more experience, because I knew I got the job, and before I started, I was going to talk to other people who have been working remotely, like, hey, what is things I should do? And they also said, like, hey, just dress like you would go to the office. Because if you are just going to in your pajamas, you're going to come out of bed and sit behind your computer and wear the same pajamas to bed again. That will make you really depressed. That's not going to work for very
mhm,
long. So just get dressed, shave, do all the things as if you would go to the office. I've heard people who would actually walk around the block just to simulate kind of their time, their commute to the office and back. So whenever they start working, they would walk around the block, sit behind their desk, do their
mm,
work, and whenever they're done, they walk around the other way, I think, and then go back home, and that's kind of like their time to take their mind off things
yeah.
or
To clear your
yeah. So there's these little tips. If people are interested in that, talking a little bit more, then maybe I can do that on my channel, so I can make some videos for
yeah.
that. Please let me know if that's something that you're interested in. But yeah, that is a couple of the things. Then of course there's the time zone, so that is hard, right? So yeah, I have to find some times where you can maybe communicate. You can have a meeting. But this is also, so this is speaking from my experience as Microsoft, and it's also very dependent on the team. So I've been working on
Mm,
the exam informs team now, who has been working remotely for some people already for 10 years, right? So they know how to do it. And also the people on the team very much work autonomously, so they do their own work. It's just one person that knows the task that they're doing, and we don't need to very have very much meetings or coordinate or sync or whatnot. We just know what is needed, and whenever we do need someone, then we will use tools like Teams now, or it was Slack a while back. Um,
mm,
so if you want to work effectively remotely and through time zones, you're going to have to get used to communicating asynchronously.
mm,
So that means I will put a message in Teams saying like, "Hey, I got this problem," and describe everything you have. So don't say hi to a person, right? That's also something that
mhm,
happens a lot. You just say hi,
mhm.
waiting for a response, which isn't very effective, right? So just still say hi, still be nice, but also say the question that
Describe.
you have, yeah, the
Yeah.
problem that
Describe
you
the
have,
question. Mm,
and but don't expect that you get an answer immediately. So they you probably know where they are, so you know when is the time that they can wake up. But it might be the middle of the night for them, so it can be a few hours before they wake up and be able to help you. um,
mm,
so make use of that. It can also be very flexible that way. So I have times where I get out of bed late because I'm working in evenings, just so can I have a meeting with someone, or I just work my regular time if I have work enough that I can do myself. That's fine too. So you can be really flexible as you learn how to work remotely, but it can definitely be challenging, especially when you get started with all of that. Also, like I said, like when I started talking about this, I was very used to working from 9 to 5. So whenever I started working remotely, and I thought like, hey, I'm now going to go. It's nice weather. I'm going to have a walk with my wife or go to the zoo with my kids in the morning at a time where I would usually be working. There was this voice in the back of my head saying like, oh, you should be working. You should be working. They're going to fire you because you're not working now. But it's fine, right? Because I would still make those hours up in the evening, and I would have a meeting with them, and it would be great. Um, so yeah, it can be really flexible. I think now it took me 2 years, I think, to really learn how to work remotely effectively. So yeah, it's definitely not something that comes easily. It is much easier whenever you work at least in the same time zone, absolutely. But there's good sides and bad sides to everything basically. So
Yeah, yeah. Gerald, many thanks for the great information you give us in this session, and I think I learned more from you, from your
great,
channel, and from these sessions, and for everything, my friend. Also, we hope you make a playlist in your YouTube channel to talking about working remotely and how to resolve any problem you can face in working remotely. I think you will give a great information for everyone. I think you have more information than we talk about in this session.
absolutely.
So we are waiting for more from you, my friend. And also, inshallah, we want to talk about the .NET Maui previews, and we are waiting the launch of the .NET Maui, inshallah, soon. We will have you again, inshallah, soon to talk about a new topics. Thank you for being with us in this session. We hope, inshallah, for you a good life and a happy life with your kids and with your house, for love and abundance or everything. Many thanks, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'll be happy to be back for any topic that you want to talk about. So absolutely, we'll be in touch, Ali. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. Goodbye, everyone.